Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to WOR PC Tier 2 for Season 23. And tonight we have our second mystery round underway this evening after what was a dramatic race in Bahrain under the lights. We have had the track revealed, and we are heading over to Interlagos for round 2 of the season. Back where it was in the calendar in the 80s and 90s. My name is Max Ring, and joining me alongside me this evening, it's not Corey Brooks. It is Joseph Black for another stint here in Tier 2. How are you, Joseph, on this Monday evening?
Very well. Happy to see that it is going to be Interlagos that we're racing at tonight. Great circuit. Very, very good circuit. And, well, it should be no shortage of racing action. I believe it was also on last season's calendar as well, because it would have been myself and I believe it was Josh Richards alongside me for that one. But the action was good, and the action today should be even better. They've had that practice. They've warmed themselves up, and they're now ready to go. Indeed, it was, in fact, last season. I've just had a check at the last round of last season, but the drivers have warmed themselves up. They've only had one round of racing, and they're back in Brazil.
Yes, they certainly are. Of course, it was Cameron Dowds who ended up taking the victory last week. Let's have a look at the standings, which is, of course, your top 10 from last time out. It's Cameron Dowds who, of course, leads the way from Gabor Jontos in seconds, and it's Marcel Paps in third, Pasquale Ranieri in fourth, then Isaac Lee fifth, Lanrock sixth, Lorero in seventh after some late race drama for the Red Bull driver, and then Scott Holmes, Leo Lund and Aaron Raminguez rounded off your field in the top 10 at Bahrain. But it was a great start for Dowds here, Joseph, where he had a tricky season last season. He started off quite nicely. The question is, can he repeat that feat heading into the second round of the season?
Well, you will certainly hope so. He certainly wouldn't. He's had a good stretch of momentum to bring him up to this point as well. And, of course, we'll see its early stages in this season. They had a couple of weeks off, and then they're back to racing. So, of course, it'll be one of those things where it'll stack up throughout the course of this season. But it's a good start, and one that he'll be hoping to capitalise on.
It certainly will be indeed. Gabor Jontos, of course, there in second as well, be looking to try and make amends after missing out on the race victory last time out. But talking about drivers racing and everything to do with qualifying as well, we are out on the circuit now, trackside. So let's head over to Interlagos as the drivers have loaded into the session. And the first driver round looks to be one of the potential V-carbs. It is not going to be Cameron Dowds. It is going to be his teammate of Ryan Bakar, the first driver to take a tour around this circuit. So Joseph, as we get underway for qualifying here, take us away with the V-carb driver as he gets us underway here in Interlagos.
Yeah, of course, Ryan Bakker coming around the final corner to start his lap, and it's a long back straight. It's not necessarily a straight, but that's what we're going to define it as then as he heads into the first couple of corners. You want to get as close to the curb as you can. Ryan runs slightly wide, and then therefore is slightly wide out of turn 2 and is able to save it pretty well into turn number 3 through Curva de Sol, and now down the Reta Aposta towards the end of the first sector, and it'll be a 17.066 as he heads into the next braking zone of Desida de Lago. You want to take as much of that curbing as you possibly can without touching the grass, and this is a little bit of a scrappy lap from Ryan so far through Ferradura turn 6 and then up to the next proper braking zone of Curva do Laranjeira in turn number 7, and then it'll head out, of course, into turns 8 and turn number 9. There'll be 15 corners on this circuit, including one midway down the straight just after the DRS, and that will be the majority of the final sector. Just coming to the end of the second one now for Ryan Bakker. It's a 50.984 even for the V-carb, and then coming out from Yunsao and down towards turns number 13, 14 and then 15 to finish himself off. Ryan Bakker, the first lap on the board, it'll be valid and it'll be 106.803, so lots of work to do. Can Scott Holmes improve on that by any stretch?
Yes, that's a nice, not really too strong of a banker lap there from Bakar, but that is Isaac Lee only into second place, not even breaking into the 1 minute 6s. Scott Holmes just misses out and actually sets an identical lap time with Tony Hietala. Gabor Jontos only 4 fastest for him, pushed down to 5th as Langrock comes across the line to just miss out on that provisional pole from Ryan Bakar. We now have Cameron Dowd to the line, and he now takes that top spot. Of course, dominated early on in qualifying last week. Can he repeat that feat, but this time potentially get it across the line? That was one of the McLarens just making their way across the start-finish line. That was Tope, who's just not been able to keep a valid lap. Then we have, I think that's the Rero now coming up to the line. No, it is not. That was his teammate Tomasetto Alaya, who's just starting another attempt. Galindo and Flack not breaking into the 6s either. The 2 Aston Martins down in 9th and 10th. And now we look at Oliver Knott as he now makes his run to the line. Apparently purple in that middle sector. And for Oliver Knott, what is this going to be for his first lap time? Can he rival Dowds? No, he cannot. Goes into those 1 minute 6.8. Many driver in the 0.8s. One driver in the 0.9. That's Gabor Jontos. And then we have 4 drivers in the 7s so far, as we still have the Rero pushing on as he makes his way to the line as Ramirez goes third.
Certainly does. Alejandro Loureiro around the final corner, and the FVR man is going to come into the pits not happy with the lap, and I'm not surprised he got to a 106 by the time that he was by the pit lane. Tomasetto Elia, of course, Elia Tomasetto is his actual name. It's the other way around, which makes it slightly confusing as the other Red Bull car, and he's heading through the final corner. Maybe he's going to come up to the line, or maybe he's going to come into the pits as well. He will be continuing on. He will be going to the line, and for Tomasetto Elia, it is a 106.8. I mean, I said Ryan Bakar's lap was scrappy. It's ended him up in 4th so far, so it ended up not being too bad. Alexi Cavero, the next one to the line. It won't be challenging. It will be a 107.084, which will be 13th place. The last of the first runs to come in, apart from Lucas Beisner, who's out of range with the rest of the field. Also, we have Tope, JST, and Alex Lofer, of course, not having set laps so far, but JST just joined the circuit and has just joined his fellow Ferrari man in setting their first laps slightly off of the rest of this field. It'll be a little bit later than the first runs, but a little bit too early to call it a second run, so I'll call this run 1.5.
Yeah, it is somewhat run 1.5 here for these drivers, especially for, I think, JST, who was out not too long ago, just wasn't able to get that valid lap time on the board and instantly dove into pit lane. And we'll see what him and teammate Beisner can do throughout the rest of this lap. This is Beisner's first attempt, so as the Ferrari makes his way into the center S, is down to 3rd gear, hits that inside apex nicely, runs the car nice into the apex of turn 2, and then you hug that inside curb through 3 to then open up the DRS and get a slingshot down the Retro Aposta into the Stino del Lago. 17-0 in that first sector. Apparently the best we have seen so far, as he's got a little bit of traffic to contend with, but keeps out the way quite nicely. That's one of the Haas cars just pulling over to that right-hand side. As it's now going to be slamming onto the brakes into turn 8. Really flicks the car in aggressively. The rear end stepping out as he potentially just dabbed a rear tyre onto the grass. Nicely done through Pinarino as well as you head up into Pico to Pato. Braking as the inside curb starts. And then down to 3rd gear. Slowly bring the car back up on the power. Don't want to lose the rear on exit. Flat out through 11 as you set yourself up for Yin Sao. Down to 3rd gear. A little bit wide from that apex. You want to just be nibbling on that inside apex curb. And for Lucas Beisner, as he now makes his way to the line, we'll get a lovely slipstream from the car in front of him. A lovely distance so there as he makes his way to the line, and it's a 1 minute 7.118. Lots of these drivers here, Joseph, struggling to set real competitive lap times at the moment. Usually we're seeing these drivers at this stage of the session dipping into the 0.4s, if not the 0.3s.
Yeah, it just very much looks like that at this point in time. It's going to be close. JST 15.6 in the first lap of his session, so of course setting himself up for the second one. Tope and Alex Lofer, no lap times on the board for them. Of course, Alejandro Loureiro is that car in last place, and Ryan Bakker up to the front row. 106.614 is going to be 0.011 off of the back of Cameron Dowds. And, well, that'll be an entirely V-car front row at the moment, an entirely Mercedes second row, and an entirely Alpine third row as Tamashko Kenny is out of this session. Has he just crashed into the pit lane?
I think he has. I think that was him down the main straight. He's potentially just overshot the pit lane, tried bailing in at the last second, and he's crashed the car. That's a really unusual incident there as Loureiro puts himself up in a third. Tony Atala went quickest of all as that happened. Dowd still in pit lane. Shontos now to fifth fastest. What about Tope as he's making his way to the line? He comes into pit lane, not happy with that one, and also did invalidate. That was one of the Aston Martins promoting themselves further up the order. That was Galindo to 11th. Esti only on a 7.3. Is there anyone else pushing on to the line? Cavero is just starting a potential. That's Bakar just behind him. I think we're all said and done for these laps. Yes, Sabaton has invalidated his attempt. Aaron Ramirez is also invalidated. I was about to say he's pushing on, as actually we have Oliver Knott up by 0.2 of a second in the middle sector here. Could he potentially put his hand in for the front row of the grid?
He's going to give it a go. Oliver Knott up to the line with 9 minutes to go in the session. It'll be a 106.660, so that would have been enough for the front row after the first runs. But after the second runs, it's all getting very close at the top, and he's just found himself the slowest of the 0.6s at this point in time. Enzo Sabaton just behind him with a 106.7, and Aaron Ramirez in the same range as well. So it's quite clear which drivers are going to be nearer the top. Alex Lofer, of course, only 0.003 off of the front row. Cameron Dowd, only 100th off of Tony Hitala at the very top. Alexi Cavero, 107.084, and well, he's improving by 0.023, so there's a small improvement, but he needs a hell of a lot more time in this final sector if he can get up into the mid sixes, which is what he needs at the moment. He's not going to do that. Into the pit lane he comes, and the McLaren will be going again. Not a great qualifying session so far for either of the McLarens nor the Ferraris.
No, certainly not indeed. Cavero and Tope only 15th and 20th. Basner and Esti only 16th and 19th. Really struggling at this stage of qualifying, but still 7 minutes and 50 seconds left to go. And we have Thomas Atualaya now pushing on a lap, a 10th and a half to the good. And then through the Sino De Largo, runs a little bit wide and invalidates the lap. But this is a big lap coming up now from Cameron Dowd. He's had his provisional pole taken away from him, but this is his second attempt and an opportunity to take it straight back from Tony Hitala and respond with a statement of a lap time. Nicely done through 3. That Haas driver will just be able to keep out the way quite nicely. That was of Hitala, and he's up by 13 thousandths in that first sector. Maybe a little bit hesitant into the Sino de Largo, potentially just a little bit early on the brakes as you now make your way into turn 6 and then through 7. Another car keeping out the way. Could be a visual distraction though, but Dowd still hits that apex quite nicely of 8 through the Pinarinho, and now up the hill we go once more. Slamming onto the brakes, locking up that inside front, just turning as aggressively as you possibly can here with Cameron Dowd. Is he up or is he down in the middle sector? It seemed a bit scrappy through the middle part of the lap, but it's still an improvement on his previous best and still battling for that provisional pole position. So for Cameron Dowd, he dominated in the first round of the season in qualifying, got it taken away in heartbreaking circumstances. Can he reclaim his position at the top? No, misses out after a poor Yansao, and he only stays second fastest. No improvement on the board there for the V-Carb driver.
No improvement, and Rayan Bakar not improving much either. He's down by 0.005 in the first sector, and so he needs to find a lot of time. But if he does improve by basically anything, he's going to be right in the thick of that fight for that pole position. We have also a couple of other quicker drivers in qualifying as Top 8 gets his first time on the board. He's going to be in 10th place. Rayan Bakar, big slide. He's going to back out of that lap. Alex Lofer just starting on one. Tony Hitala right in the middle of one.
Yep, Hitala pushing on now, the man on provisional pole. Can he do anything to just strengthen his grasp on that top spot? Oh, big slide out of 8. He also went a bit wide from the apex as well, as you see these drivers really pushing their limits as it currently stands in this qualifying session. They know they have more attempts in the bag, so they don't have to be as lenient on the tyres for now. And he's down by half a tenth in that middle sector as Scott Holmes goes quickest of all as we see Hitala spinning out of Yansao. Holmes to the very top. What about Alejandro Loureiro? He is up by nearly a tenth of a second. At the moment, this is good enough to just about snatch that provisional pole away from Scott Holmes. But if he has a good Yun Sao, he certainly could give himself a comfortable cushion over the rest of the field. Across the line now with Loureiro, and he does go to the very top, but only by 7 thousandths of a second. It is oh so close here in qualifying and Interlagos. Drivers separated by mere milliseconds between the likes of Loureiro all the way down to Tope in 12th. That is a total of 3 tenths separating those 12 drivers. And just look at that gap, Joseph, from Dowds all the way to Alaya, from 4th down to 9th. Less than a tenth of a second separates those few cars.
Yes, it's incredibly close and less than a tenth of a second splits first and fifth as well. Ray and Back are improving up to become the 4th driver into the 6.5s, a 6.598. Just in behind Tony Hitala. Keaton Lutz scrapes into the top 10 with a 6.7. And, well, he's only just scraped into the 6.7s, just behind Thomas Eto'Elia, whose time at the moment is a 106.676. He's in 9th place, and, well, there was a lot of improvement for his lap. Gabor Shontos as well. That lap was set before the last runs. So Gabor, that is going to be very, very close for the Haas driver if he's able to pull a lap together. Aaron Ramirez, in the meantime, as well, jumps up to 6th place. He's got a 106.622, so he almost joins the club of being within a tenth of Alex Lofer. He is 1,000th ahead of Gabor Shontos. A lot of improvement found for Alexi Cavero, a lot of improvement needed for Alexi Cavero, as he's currently got a 107, and now he might be set to join the 106s club, maybe even the 105s. Casper Flash comes across the line with this 106.754. That puts him 13th. He'll be likely dropped down to 14th, but Alexi Cavero again dives into the pit lane, and he's really leaving this one late.
Yeah, Alexi Cavero just not happy with the lap, but he's really banking on an absolute barnstormer of a lap to just bring this one over the line in this final attempt. Knows he doesn't have much time left in this session and is willing to bet all his chips on one last attempt. And we still have, of course, Ramirez out on the road and Flack just trundling their way back to pit lane. And the first driver out on a new outlap looks to be Dennis Langrock. So this is going to be his final attempt, closely followed by teammate Enzo Sabaton. And I think actually here they're both going for a double cool lap to start our things off. It's definitely Langrock going for a double outlap. But for Sabaton, he's going to be pushing on here, Joseph. Let's see what the man in 12th place so far can do. He's fine 2 tenths of a second if he wants to snatch pole position away.
He might have to fight through some traffic here in the start of this lap, but 2 minutes 18 left in the session. This is the last opportunity for the Frenchman to see what he can do down towards Desida de Lago to end the first sector. It's up by 0.028, so a small improvement. But here, in this session, small improvements mean a lot. And Sabaton now needs to make this second sector hook up. But don't forget, there's the Alpine and the Ferrari ahead, both on outlaps. Both may well unintentionally get in the way of Enzo Sabaton at some point. It looks as though they are just about going to be escaped, and it might give him a sumptuous bit of slipstream as he heads down the main straight. Sabaton then on the exit of turn number 12 and down towards the final couple of corners. What's he going to do? It's an improvement, a tenth and a half, and some change as well, just to add that into it. He looks like he's going to be on for this provisional pole position, but don't forget, the track evolution has been so much that I don't think it's going to be the lap that is going to take pole. Sabaton, though, is going to be up to 3rd place. Bit of time lost in the final sector, and he's going to get a 106.539. So 200th off of Alex Lofer, and I think he could even be as far as down into about 6th, 7th, 8th place, something like that, by the end of this session. Cameron Dowds, he's almost found 2 tenths. This could be an absolutely humongous lap from everybody.
It certainly could indeed. Dowds trying to restake his claim for pole position, and it was a much better Yun Sao than we saw in his previous attempts. Up to the line comes the V-Carb, and he snatches provisional pole away by nearly a tenth of a second as Shontos goes up to 4th and crashes across the line. Not happy with how that attempt went. Hitala not going to be finding an improvement as it currently stands. Does he have time, though, to go again? That will be oh so crucial, and no, it doesn't seem so at the moment. Actually, no, he will have time to go again. So we'll need to look out for Tony Hietala. Langrock up by 400ths in that first sector. Scott Holmes, the man in third place currently, what's he doing in the middle sector? He's down by a 10th.5. I think that's certainly going to be his session over and done with. Bakar had to back out and go again. Raminguez only just starting his attempt, but what about Alejandro Loureiro, who was on provisional pole before Dowds has snatched it away in the dying embers of this session? Not stays in 11th place. Here comes Alejandro Loureiro, though, through the middle sector. Just eases the car through the Pico to Pato. Alaya now up into second place as through the middle sector split. 600th found by Loureiro, but as it currently stands, it will not be enough to snatch pole position away from Cameron Dowd, as he just replied in qualifying where he got him taken away from him in heartbreaking circumstances. Lofa has done it! Once again, Dowds gets pole taken from his grasp in the most brutal circumstances possible, when he thinks he's done everything he can, when he thinks he's done enough. But here comes his teammate Bakar. Can he beat the Loureiro? No! Misses out by 0.02 of a second. Hietala to fourth, as he just misses out on third place as well. As I think, unless Raminguez was able to do something, no, he was not. Oh, Carlos Galindo, he's not pushing on. And of course, Isaac Leit's not either. It's going to be Alejandro Loureiro who takes pole position here in Interlagos from Ryan Bakar. And then Cameron Dowd, who once again, 2 weeks running, pulls a lap of all laps out of the bag. But just the other drivers have a whole different gear, and it's Loureiro on pole by the barest of margins.
By the barest of margins indeed. The Red Bull driver snatched it at the very last moment. He and Rayan Bakar fought it out all session long, but he will be taking that pole position. Cameron Dowd in third place as well. I think he'll feel as though there was a bit of time left on the board. Same with Hietala, same with Shontos, Thomas Eto'Elia and Scott Holmes just having the bottle to throw themselves right near the very top of this field as well. It's so very open here in Interlagos, and it could be anybody's game.
It certainly could be anybody's game. It was such a tense and tight qualifying. Look at that. The top four split by less than a 1/10 of a second. It's Loureiro on pole from Bakar, then Dowds, and then it is Hietala, Alaya, Holmes, Shontos, Sabaton, Isaac Lee, and Raminguez, who round out your top 10. It's Keaton Lutt, Dennis Langrock, Oliver Knott, Casper Flack, Cavero, who put his chips on that final lap, but it was only 15th fastest. Top 8, Galindo, Esti Basner, and Tamas Kokeni, who had that early accident, rounding out your field. But we're going to quickly head to a short intermission as the drivers get this lobby restart underway, and we shall see you in a few moments' time. Can the Loureiro convert pole to a race victory? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here to Sao Paulo for round 2 here in World Online Racing for Season 23 here in PC Tier 2. And we're going to be underway for a 4.309 kilometers or 2.677 miles and 15 corner circuit here at Interlagos, with, of course, 2 DRS zones. One down at the main straight where you activate it just before turn 15, and the other just after turn 3, all the way down into the Sino de Largo. And we can take you trackside to show you, ladies and gentlemen, that we have clear skies, and we are now about to get underway. We have timed this to sheer perfection. It's 5 red lights. It's Loureiro and Bakar on the front row of the grid. And we're underway here in Brazil, and it's a good start from the V car, but he's already made his way into P1 just before we even reach the first corner. And there's contact between Dowd and Loureiro, who's sent spinning down the order, and he's down to 19th place. Loureiro from pole to P19 before we even exit the first corner. Hitala capitalises as he moves up to second place. Here comes Scott Holmes to the inside now of Cameron Dowd. No move being made there. That was someone really wide in the background. I think that was Carlos Galindo going really wide, being forced off. Sabaton up into 5th. Round the outside goes Gabo Jontos into P6 potentially if he can get this move done now. Round the outside of 8 and to the inside of turn 9. But Thomas said to Elia will hold the better line into the Pico Tapato and will actually look for a move on Enzo Sabaton. We're 3 wide now, exiting out of the Pico Tapato, and it's Jontos who gets past a pair of them. Opportunistic racing from the Hungarian as he moves himself up into 5th place. But drama, Joseph, at the start of this race as Loureiro sent down the order.
Yeah, Loureiro all the way back down. This has shades of Brazil 2012 with the Red Bull being sent spinning at turn 1. But hopefully he's going to try and find his way back up. And his first target, Carlos Galindo in the Aston Martin. Scott Holmes makes his way through on Cameron Dowd, who fights his way back. And they're going to be out of the first couple of corners, still side by side. Holmes then holds the inside for the Sino de Largo, which is the corner that you want to be at. And it'll be later on the brakes for himself, but it won't quite be through just yet. Cameron Dowd keeps a tyre in, keeps a nose in, and tries to keep himself in as Oliver Knott has had problems. Contact between Dowds and Holmes, and in the end, Dowds pushes his way back through, up into P3. Late lunge from Scott Holmes, who comes straight back at him. They are both desperate for this third place, and they will continue this on all the way through this lap. I would imagine we're already halfway through, and they've spent the majority of it side by side, but a lockup from Holmes might just be the turning point, and it will indeed be. Cameron Dowds takes P3. Scott Holmes has to settle for 4th.
Yeah, now Holmes under pressure from Gabo Shontos, of course, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at the tyres, everyone on softs, a set from Kokeni and Isaac Leet, as there's something potentially happening between Loureiro, SD, and also Cavero, as they've actually dropped. Cavero's dropped behind both the Ferraris, and Loureiro only behind SD, as we're now side by side, and we're also side by side at the front of the field. Shontos to the inside of Scott Holmes gets the move done, and the Williams driver now falls down to 5th place. Sabaton and Raminguez side by side just behind them, as they both have the DRS open. Now it's going to be a repeat of what we saw between Dowd and Holmes heading into the Sino de Largo, but it's later on the brakes from Raminguez. He gets the move done and actually scares Scott Holmes offline. This is brilliant stuff here from the Spaniard, as he's now going to try and ring this one round the outside. Just won't be able to do so, of course, as I was just about to mention before all the battles kicked off. Hard tyres are banned if you're just joining us for this season, so only the softs and the mediums at play, meaning 2 stops are pretty much mandatory around most circuits, as we now see a lunge from Keaton Lutt there on to Tomasetto Elia. Gets the move done. Let's have a look at the positional changes for these drivers in this race. It's up 4 for Raminguez, up 3 for Lutt, down 4 for Elia, of course, down 16 for Alejandro Loureiro. The only drivers to stay in their same position are Flack and Dowd, who's now under pressure from Gabo Jontos behind.
He certainly is. Gabo Shontos just the 2/10 back, off of the back of Cameron Dowds. The fastest lap set by Rayan Bakar in the lead of the race. He's jumped up 1 place. Tony Hitala up 2. Cameron Dowds, the only driver to have stayed in position off of this race start. Tomasetto Elia, Jeslar, the only drivers to have lost positions inside the top few without any problems. And Alexi, not Alexi even, Alex Loafer up to 17th place ahead of Alexi Cavero, who's looking to challenge him. Tope and Dennis Langrock fighting away for 10th place, and it looks like Tope's made his way through pretty easily. He's got his sights set now on Elia Tomasetto for that 9th place. A swap between Isaac Leet and Dennis Langrock sees Dennis drop down another position. Not a great couple of corners for the Mercedes, who has to make sure to keep his head here. But there's a couple of gaps already being opened up. There's about 8/10 between Dowds and Hitala.
Yeah, some gaps now start to form as this race dies down. Drivers now going to be into tyre-saving mode, especially on these soft compounded tyres. That's JSD going side by side with Casper Flack through 11, and he gets the move done. Does the Ferrari as he now moves his way up into 14th. Bakar got a 7/10 advantage over Tony Hietala, who'll bring that gap down now with the DRS. His fastest lap for the V-Carb, who's leading the way. Of course, was helped slightly by his teammates on that opening tour, thanks to that contact between Dowds and Loureiro, who's dropped down to 17th place and has not made too much of an impact since then. He's actually fallen further down than going forwards since that incident. And Ryan Bakar leads the way by 4/10 of a second. Of course, a good start from Aaron Dominguez, sees him up into 6th. I think now, Joseph, is where we start to see the battery and tyre management. Of course, these softs do not last long around any circuit, but especially around Brazil with some of these long radius corners. They do take a fair beating, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see drivers in probably around about lap 7 or 8.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. They won't have much data on the soft compound tyres on any circuit, just because of the fact that it is very much not the optimal tyre at any track. Especially not, as you mentioned, around Brazil. It's very, very difficult for these tyres to really come into their operating window, because as soon as they do, they are instantly out of it and back to their back to the original form, which is starting to deform. I know that these tyres can go off very, very quickly, very easily. So as you say, they've done well to make it to this point in the race already, 6 laps in. And, well, I think they're going to start considering the change very soon. It will be, though, Isaac Leet, I think, who's going to benefit off of these strategies. Tamas Kokeni didn't have a good enough start to benefit off of it. So he's going to be right down the back of the field and trying to fight his way back through. And there's a move for, this will be for 15th place. Lucas Beisner through on Casper Flash. This is about tyre management now. Who's got their best tyre management? Who understands the tyres and the situations on this game? And who is going to be able to capitalise from it?
That really is just the big question. Who knows how to nurse these tyres? Who is the smoothest driver on this circuit? Of course, if you flick that wheel in like we see drivers doing qualifying, you really do have to put a lot more excess wear on the tyre, and that's not what you want to do in these scenarios. As Kokeni now going around the outside of Cavero makes the move for 18th place. Not has been able to recover quite nicely as well, as he's back up into 20th. Not back up into 20th, sorry, back up into the DRS range. And for Oliver Knott, he'll have a big comeback drive to do as we see our first couple of drivers into pit lane. It's Beisner and also Cavero, as Beisner now actually picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So even more drama for the Scuderia Ferrari driver. And it's really been an evening to forget here, Joseph, for Lucas Beisner. As we also see Kokeni get past Alejandro Loureiro. Those mediums starting to seem like the better tyre.
Yeah, they really are. I think they have been for a couple of laps, and it's just about trying to extract it now, because they want to manage them so they don't have to do that stint on the soft for too long. Of course, they'll be spending a lot of time in the pit lane that they won't want to be spending. So the longer they can stay out on each individual stint, the better as far as they're concerned. So it'll all be about tyre management. And now it's at a point where those tyres are going to be the better ones, and they're not going to take as full advantage of it as they could. But yeah, it would just be remaining in that fight and just trying to stay with the rest of the field, as we will be seeing more pit stops. Don't forget as well, some of the cars will have to double stack. And Cameron Dowds is going to be leading the way of the drivers who don't come into the pits. He is really, really going to be not doing particularly well from this one, because he's going to have to go another lap. So is Gabo Shontos, Aaron Dominguez, Keaton Lutt, Elia Tomasetto, all doing the same thing. And it's really not going to benefit any of those drivers, I wouldn't imagine.
No, none of these drivers really going to be enjoying that. They have to do an extra lap because they double step. But of course, last time out in Brazil, that overcut did work in some of these drivers' favours, so it could still work out into their cards. We're going to see potentially Jontos and Dowds in this lap, but we saw, of course, Jontos as well in that last race in Bahrain stay out even longer, make that 2 to 3 laps longer than the rest of the field. So he potentially could try and eke these tyres out to the end of lap 9 if he wishes to do so. But we see now exiting out of Yensao and up the hill. I'm expecting Dowds in at the very least this time around, and no, he elects to stay out. Jontos stays out as well. They're doing the same strategy as we saw from last week, where they stay out a couple laps extra than the rest of the field around them, and then they put to pay those fresher medium compounder tyres. They really utilise those mediums as much as they possibly can because they have that extra window to push on into. So on the strategy front, it does get quite technical, it does get quite confusing, and Tamas Kokeni now up into 8th place as he gets past Carlos Galindo. Those mediums really starting to work a treat, but the main gaps here to look out for here, Joseph, it's really between Bakar and Dowds.
It really is, and it'll be just a very close one to watch. I think it will be Bakar ahead of the driver that is currently, of course, in the lead of the race, Rayan Bakar. But, of course, we will have to see where they stack up at the end, because it does mean that the tyres will be a lot better for Rayan Bakar, and so, a lot better for Dowds than Rayan Bakar, and so it's an opportunity for the V-Carb driver to get ahead of the V-Carb driver. And I'm sure it will be a pit stop maybe on this lap for Cameron Dowds, because I think those tyres are going to be nearing puncture region. Rayan Bakar 16.4 behind, so it's almost guaranteed he'll be taking the lead regardless of what happens here, but it'll all be down to how they manage those tyres in this second stint. Will Bakar be able to hang on to those tyres so that he can offset the undercut, or will he just be struggling to keep them in shape? Dowds goes on for another lap. This is 10 laps on these tyres, and it's going to be very impressive to see as Top 8 sets the fastest lap.
Yep, Top 8 on the fastest lap there on his fresh medium compounder tyres. He's out of that train with the likes of Bakar, Hitala, Holmes and Sabaton. At this current rate, it's actually Hitala did get past Rayan Bakar there. And of course, Joseph, you have experience being an engineer in these kind of environments, in these kind of levels, but not with these stipulations. Just what would be going through, say, an engineer for Dowds or even Jontos at this stage where they've stayed out a lot longer than the rest of the field? What would be the game plan heading into a race where the hard tyres are completely banned? What will be going through your head at this stage?
Well, they've got a decent idea of how much the soft compound tyres wear in at least clean air, if not dirty air. So they've got a vaguely decent idea of how long those tyres can last. That lockup from Dowds won't help them in any way, shape or form. But they've got a decent idea of how long it lasts. They've also got a decent idea, you would imagine, as Casper Flash gets a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. They've got a decent idea of how the offset is. So when they come into the pits, how much time are they going to lose? How much time are they going to be able to gain with how late they come into the pit lane? I think the general consensus will be that they're going to try and stretch the stints as much as they can. It's going to be all about stretching and seeing what they can do, because you don't want to stitch yourself over being later on in the race, because it can be up to about 2 seconds of difference between fresher softs and much older softs, and I think that's what those drivers will be doing. Or fresher mediums, much older mediums. It's a slight less difference, a slight less differential on the yellow wall tyre, but it's still going to have an effect. So for this first stint, it's not all about pace, I think, for Dowds and Jontos. I think they're going to be just managing the tyres, and then later on they can start to be a bit more aggressive when they have a bit more of an idea of the strategy they're going to go for. And the strategy that they're going to go for is implemented now, as on what will be lap 12, they're going to come in, and Cameron Dowds will pick up a 10-second time penalty. That changes this game. That changes this race almost instantly, as we've just had Isaac Leet out. Has he become the second victim of the pit lane entry, or has he just retired in the pits? I think he might have become a victim of the entry.
I think, yeah, he just maybe got a bit of front wing damage or something in the pit entry. Not sure what happened there with Isaac Leeds. He was just coming into the pit lane. But drama there for Cameron Dowds. Of course, the man who won last time out with some superb strategic calls. Unfortunately for him, picks up a 10-second time penalty. And now look at that gap between him and Ryan Bakar. It is a total of 7 seconds between himself and his teammate, and of course Tony Gatala just in front of Ryan Bakar as well, who's actually caught up to the back of Alejandro Guerrero. To think, Guerrero started this race on pole position, now being overtaken in a few moments' time by the offset strategy, the different strategy to what he is doing. They came in earlier, and you surely think Guerrero's going to get out their way by the time we reach the end of this lap, but Gatala will get some DRS thanks to the Red Bull, who will now pull into pit lane alongside Aaron Ramirez, and it's DRS open, not only for Gatala, but for Ryan Bakar as well. Now we're going to see a move from the V-Carb heading into turn 1. No, we are not. Or is he? Got really close under braking there, did Ryan Bakar, but he won't be able to pull it off. I don't think he's going to be able to do it down the Retro Posta into the Sino de Largo either. So we're going to stay the same within the top 2 of this train. But Tamas Kokeni, the lone driver yet to box here, Joseph, still on those medium compounder tyres. He's a real catalyst in this one, because we know once Kokeni comes into pit lane, that's the real limit of the medium tyre.
It certainly is, and he's done most of his running in the pack and right at the back of the pack, so he's picked up the majority of the dirty air. So just expect those at the front to go for maybe 1 or 2 more laps longer than whatever Kokeni does. That's at least my prediction, and that's what I'd be looking out for. But Kokeni around the final corner, I don't think he'll be coming in for another few laps yet, as Keen Lap makes his way through, and Lucas Beisner. This is going to be the difference as well. This is a very interesting time to watch from the perspective of those who are looking at the tyres, and Kokeni in fact does dive into the pit lane, so he's going to make the switch. Maybe the medium tyre wear is going to be a little bit less than I thought, or the time they're able to last is going to be a little bit less, and the ability of them to stretch the stints is going to be a little bit less. As Gabo Shontos through on top A, and that'll be the move up into 6th place for himself. Cameron Dowd's just ahead, and he'll be hoping for the move as Lucas Beisner comes into the pit lane and becomes the next retirement in this race.
Unfortunate C2 cars fall so quickly as we're about to reach that halfway stage in a few laps' time. And yeah, for Beisner and Isaac Lee, it's just been races to forget as Guerrero gets overtaken there by not only Keaton Lutt, but also JSD as well as contact. SD set into a slide, somehow is able to keep it out of the wall as Alaya picks up a 3-second time penalty just for trying to avoid. SD did pick up some front wing damage, I think. Yes, he did from that contact with the McLaren, but did well to not be completely out of this race as Alaya picks up a 10-second time penalty for cutting the corner and gaining a place. He must have done that at turn 8 against Guerrero, who has as well picked up a little bit of end plate damage there, you can see on the left-hand side of his car. But that was a big Code Brown moment there for JSD here, Joseph. And I think he could be a very, very lucky man to stay in this race.
Yeah, very lucky indeed, and he'll be happy to be able to stay in this race and get the opportunity to continue on into the pit lane then for JST. And Alexi Guerrero, 10-second time penalty. He retires from the session. From the sounds of things as well, that's exactly the fate that befell Isaac Leeds. He got a 10-second and decided that that was it. It's a shame for those drivers to make that decision, but of course it's ultimately their decision, and they decide that it's not going to be worth their time to continue on in this race. 15 of 36, and we are down 16 drivers, so the margins for error are increasing, but of course at the same time it's still points for the top 10, and they still want to be as high up as they can, so taking the opportunities that are left by drivers like JST and Alexi Guerrero to retire from the session, taking those opportunities is going to be absolutely vital, and that's exactly what those drivers are going to be trying to do, where they open up the door, they make as little mistakes as they can, and then they find themselves 3 or 4 places higher than pace-wise they may well deserve.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's all about just staying in it. It's just about surviving the chaos, surviving the race, and of course to finish first you have to finish as Cameron Dowds goes to the inside of Enzo Sabaton, gets the move done and moves up into 4th place. Of course they've got a 4-lap tyre difference to these the rest of the runners in front of them, Dushontos and Cameron Dowds, as it's got DRS open for Sabaton. He's potentially got to try and retaliate, but it's also to defend from Gabo Shontos into the Sino de Largo, but just not able to get the move done. is the Haas driver. He's not going to be close enough to go around the outside or the inside, heading into turn 6. But could there be a lunge into 8? He's getting closer, and he is going to go for that lunge into turn 8. It's late on the brakes from Shontos, and that is spectacularly done from the Hungarians. He moves himself up to 5th place. He'll be now try to follow through Cameron Dowds on Scott Holmes. As these two, you can see how much more pace they have here, Joseph. They boxed 4 laps ago. That gap between Dowds and Hitala was around about 8 seconds. They're about 2 seconds a lap quicker at this stage of the race, and surely for Dowds, he'll be easy pickings against Scott Holmes.
You'd imagine so, and Cameron Dowds now chasing Scott Holmes. It will be the inside line into the first corner, and it will be P3 for Cameron Dowds, who will be later on the brakes because of the fact that his tyres are less worn. Scott Holmes not giving enough of a fight back to really challenge him into the first corner, and Gabor Shontos might be licking his lips here, looking at the back of that Williams car, opening up the DRS, but Scott Holmes chasing back with the straight line speed on Dowds and doing enough to manage to stay ahead of the Hungarian at this point in time. Shontos still chasing through, but there won't be enough of an opportunity for the Haas to make his way back into the top 4 unless he can find his way through at the next braking zone. It will have to be a late lunge, and Scott Holmes takes a slightly defensive line just to hold on to position.
Yeah, nowhere near as aggressive there from Shontos this time around. He just wasn't close enough like he was with Sabaton, but he's got to look around the outside at the Pico de Pato, potentially do the up and under to get the outside line for not only turn 11, but Yen Sao as well. But once again, just not able to draw a long enough side, and there's contact between the Williams and the Haas. Luckily for both, they're both facing in the right direction, as we now will have the DRS, and this is surely where Shontos gets by. We saw Dowds get by on Holmes into that first corner, and we're now going to see Shontos get by on Scott Holmes, and we also see Ryan Bakar move himself into the race lead, or does he? No, he went too deep into that first corner. That's now put him under pressure from his teammate of Cameron Dowds, who will try now to get the run into the Sino Delago. Will tuck into that slipstream. Bakar will be squeezing him to the outside, but it's Dowds with the dummy. To the inside he goes, and he gets the move done, but forces his teammate wide. Really aggressive racing here from Cameron Dowds. He's been getting in a plethora of incidents throughout this race. That's another one there of Bakar. That was very hard. It was aggressive, and was that potentially just a little bit over the line?
Well, that's, of course, a decision for the stewards to make, but it didn't look particularly clean there from Cameron Dowds. But it is what it is. Racing can be rubbing at certain points, and we'll see what the stewards will have to say, because we know that Ryan Bakar is one to report, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that one in the stewards room later on. We're just over halfway through this race. We're about to tick over to what will be lap number 19 of 36, and we have a race that has very much been written so far, and it is Tony Hitala's at the moment. But for Cameron Dowds, he has gone for the undercut. Ryan Bakar going for the inside, switching to the outside to the first corner, and Dowds remains in second place for the time being. But Ryan Bakar, despite the 4-lap offset, is more than willing to fight here.
He certainly is indeed. We're going to have a V-Carb civil war here as we now head down into the Sino Delago once more. It's going to be Dowds later on the brakes and is able to stay ahead. But these two need to be careful with Gabor Shontos behind, because he is certainly within striking distance. And you think he'll sniff out any opportunity, and he will go for it. The Hungarian, is he going to look for the inside into turn 8? You bet he is, as he goes to the inside of Ryan Bakar. Around the outside through 9, but Bakar with that better inside line, just able to hold on. But into the Pico de Pato will surely look for the lunge, and he does go for it again. It's oh so close to contact, and Gabor Shontos this time around, as he goes through corner exit, is able to get ahead. It's a Haas 1-3, it's a V-Carb 2-4, and Gabor Shontos will now set his sights on Cameron Dowds, who has now had that pressure relieved from his teammate behind, is now attacking the other Haas car of Tony Hitala.
Yeah, and this is for the race lead. Just a quarter of a second splitting the top two. Cameron Dowds chasing. Will he take the inside line into the first corner? Of course he will. And he's going to get through nice and cleanly. Tony Hitala going to go for the up and under. And it will be successful for the Haas driver. Back into the race lead. Very smart racing from Hitala. And Cameron Dowds will be chasing, will be continuing to try and fight with the Haas man as they head down towards the Cedar de Lago. No move for himself. Scott Holmes also looking for a move on Ryan Bakar. So it's going to be a fight up and down in this top 6, and Enzo Sabaton just watching on. He's going to want to join in soon, but I think it's going to be a case where it's smarter to just sit back and watch and wait for them to implode.
It certainly is. That's the second time now in a span of about 3-4 laps where Hitada has seen a V-Carb dive to his inside at turn 1 and just go straight on, and he says, thank you very much, I'll take that position straight back from you. He's played them both to an absolute T. He has got the cards in his hand, and he's not afraid to deal out some potential race-winning opportunities to potentially now try and hold on to this lead before the next pit phase. Of course, this is where Kokeni came into pit lane on lap 12, so expect these drivers to potentially go to lap 15. And here comes Dowd to the inside this time around. It's a lot cleaner on the brakes, and he's able to move himself up into that race lead. But Hitada can respond. He can retaliate with the DRS down the Retro Imposter as a liar now retired from the session after picking up a 10-second time penalty. He is our 5th retirement of the race, and Hitada not able to respond here, but I wouldn't be surprised here, Joseph, if unlike the V-Carbs, we do see a swap from the Haas cars. Just, of course, Hitala and Santos very experienced in their game. They know it is still a long way to go. So is Hitala going to let his teammate through?
Very potentially, we'll see with Gabor Santos with the more the more fresh tyres, but it is the difference between the drivers who work as teammates and the drivers who very much do not, because there is a big difference between them, especially on this year's game. And it looks as though Tony Hitala, who's dropped outside of the DRS of Cameron Dowds, may well be backing off to try and let Gabor Santos go. Either that, or he just doesn't have the pace to keep up with the V-Carb, who's just broken free in this race. It's looking as though Tony Hitala is really struggling on pace, and in he comes into the pit lane. That is a demonstration of the fact that he's been struggling, because he's made this decision to just come into the pit lane and make a switch, make a change, and he will be pitting onto another set of the mediums to finish off this race.
Yep, that's Hitala's last stop done, and he'll be going to the very end here. Kokeni, excuse me, a little bit further back, is all over the back of Dennis Lamrock as we're heading into the Sena de Largo. He's actually trying to put some pressure onto Tope in front, but it's no move made from Tamash Kokeni. Keelan up with 3-second time penalty. Of course, the big thing here as well, Joseph, that we've not really touched on too much since it's happened. Dowd with that 10 seconds, that pretty much rules him out of contention at this stage, unless he tries to go for an undercut at this point, because he's going to be held from an extra 10 seconds, then the pit stop's going to happen, so that's at least 12 seconds in the pit box alone. And then you've still got the good 10-12 second run down the pit lane as Kokeni and Lamrock interlock into battle once more, and it's actually inviting Aaron Ramirez to potentially get a move on the pair of them as he goes through Tamash Kokeni. Won't go through on Dennis Lamrock, and the Kicks Albert is still inside of the Alpine as we make that run up the hill and down the DRS straight, and we could be 4 wide heading in to turn 1. Tope tried to come into pit lane but was not able to as Ramirez was on his inside, and he gets past all 3 cars, does he? Heading into the first corner. Lamrock now will be on the inside for turn 2. Contact between the Alpine and the Mercedes, and here comes Tamash Kokeni to potentially thread the needle. No room there, but he's going to look to the inside on Lamrock. Gets the move done there. Tope and Lamrock with contact. Somehow they're both facing in the right direction. Ramirez goes right. Kokeni could potentially now capitalise on that. And Lamrock falls behind Tope. All kicking off here on lap 23 in this mid-pack scrap. As here comes Carlos Galindo to potentially have his say. As Lamrock goes to the inside of Tope, who goes deep into the corner. Lamrock now around the outside through turn 9. It'll be the inside for the Pico Tapato of turn 10. Galindo might just well and truly follow him through. He just can't find the gap, and Tope now down into 10th place. And this was all kick-started here, Joseph, by the McLaren trying to find his way into pit lane.
Certainly was. Tope's going to have to go again into the pit lane. He's got 15 lap-old mediums, and I don't imagine that Carlos Galindo is going to give him much of a fight down the straight. Instead, Tope will be just diving in, pulling to the left-hand side. In he comes. Scott Holmes and Aaron Ramirez also in, or Scott Holmes and Enzo Sabaton even, also into the pit lane on 24. And they are going to be making the switch for the final time for 12 laps of racing onto another set of the medium compounder tyres. Tony Hitala is going to come out then in the provisional lead of this race, but of course Cameron Dowd may well be trying to take these tyres here all the way to the end of the race. I think at least one person is going to try the zero-stop strategy, and well, I wouldn't put it past Cameron Dowd to be the one to give it a go. I think someone will give it a go, and we'll find out who, and if they in fact are going to, coming to the end of this one. And of course, I don't mean zero-stop in terms of total pit stops, I mean zero-stop as as in not coming in for this second pit stop, which everybody is expecting to do so. But Dowds, 12 laps on those medium compounder tyres now, and he's got 12 laps to go, and I think it's fair to say he's not particularly managed them very well because of all the fighting he's been doing, so I'm not sure whether it will be him, whether it will be somebody else who gives it a go, as well, we come to the end of this one, and we get our answer. Dowds in, and Gabor Shontos in as well.
Well, it seems like Ryan Bakar's trying to go for that offset, like we saw from Dowds and Shontos, and we saw how powerful that was to make their way up through the field. But where do these guys come out in relation now? Of course, Gabor Shontos in relation to his teammate Hetala, who's just made it past Alejandro Guerrero for that 7th place now in this race. And where does Dowds come out in relation to the rest of the field, as they've only just been able to get that car back on its merry way, and he's going to fall down to last place behind Tope and Oliver Knott, who could potentially recover some points in this race. And Gabor Shontos has crucially come out behind Enzo Sabaton and Scott Holmes, so he's now out in some traffic too. So if you're Tony Hitali here, Joseph, you're kind of licking your lips at the opportunity you potentially have at this stage. He's going to be a little bit more happier in that cockpit of the Haas, because not only does Shontos have to try and get past 2 people with only a 1-lap tyre age difference of Sabaton and Holmes, he also then, he will need to make his way through on not only Casper Flack, but Alejandro Guerrero as well. So for Tony Hitala, he's in a really strong position at the moment as Bakar comes into pit lane.
Yeah, Ryan Bakar into the pit lane, and as you say, Tony Hitala in a very strong position. He's got Alex Lofer and Casper Flash as well in between himself and anybody on his stint as Bakar in. Where is he going to be coming out? Scott Holmes looking to the inside line of the first corner on the move for the Aston Martin, and he's going to get through on Casper Flash, and that's unsurprising to see him make his way through. Gabor Shontos just in behind. He'll be the latest one to try and find his way past Flash, and he will pull to the outside line. It will switch to the inside, and that'll be a relatively easy move for himself. He's up. Is Sabaton going to be able to fight his way through? He's going to be alongside. It's going to be a bit harder because he's going to have to do it into the braking zone, but he's through without no real issues at all. Scott Holmes just inside the DRS of Alex Lofer as well, so it might not be the drivers that didn't come into the pit lane. They might not be able to help here with Tony Hitala's race, and instead they're going to realise it's not their fight, and Hitala will be really, really frustrated that they're going to have that exact realisation, although same esports team FVR for Hitala and for Lofer, so I think Alejandro Guerrero might give a little bit more of a fight back.
He might certainly do indeed against the likes of Scott Holmes and Gabor Shontos, but I don't think it'll be too hard for Shontos and Holmes to get by, just due to the fact that they both have DRS on the Red Bull driver. To the outside goes Holmes, to the inside goes Shontos. Is he going to try and go for Holmes as well? No, he's not. There's a yellow flag in the first sector, and that is for Keedan Lutz, who's gone around on the exit of turn 3, and he's put it into the wall. As he knows, he's just been able to keep it out of the wall, but now he's in between Hitala, Holmes, and Shontos, so it's really working into Hitala's favour at the moment, because of course Holmes will catch up to the back here of Keedan Lutz, and he probably won't be able to make it by throughout the majority of the middle sector, so by the time he does get by, it'll be 3 seconds between Hitala and Holmes, as Sabaton is able to make his way now past on the Guerrero, as something's happened to Keedan Lutz. He's just pulled off to the side and let these drivers through. So for Tony Hitala, he'll be not happy about that one bit, but I think Lutt knows he's on overheating tyres. It's not his race, and unfortunately for him, a decent strategy that might have worked out has just gone a little bit peaked on.
It certainly has. It's gone a bit wrong, and well, Hitala, of course, will be a little bit frustrated, but at the end of the day, he knows that they don't have that obligation to try and fight for him, and well, it'll be one of those things. They'll try and rebuild themselves back up now with 8 laps left to go. Into the pits comes Keedan Lutt finally, and well, he's going to get rid of those 15-lap-old medium tyres, and in fact, he's going to get rid of his race altogether. He dives into the pit lane, and that will be the last we'll see of the Kick Sauber in this race session. Unfortunate that another driver driver has made the decision to retire, which means that we're now down to 15, and none have actually crashed out of the session. They've all made the decision to retire, and I'm going to reserve my opinion on that, but I'm not particularly happy about it. I'll tell you that much for free. Tamash Kokeni continuing to lead, but of course, he's being caught up by Hitala, who now has DRS. Scott Holmes, 3 seconds off of the back of the Haas driver, and so this is going to be very close to the end of the race, as we're seeing the Alpine of Aaron Raminguez trying to fight with Tope and trying to find an opportunity to get through on himself. Is it going to be into the next braking zone? No, but there are opportunities around this circuit, and Rayan Bakos found one to get through on Alejandro Loureiro, who has gone very long in this stint, and it doesn't look as though it's going to pay off at all.
No, it certainly does not, as Kokeni now comes into pit lane, of course, for Loureiro. It was just unfortunate he got that contact with Cameron Dowds on the opening tour, because he potentially could be one in the lead of this race, or fighting for the lead of this race with the likes of Itala and Shontos. It's just not really worked in his favour since that point. He's tried something different. You can respect him for that, and as well, respect him for keeping on going and not retiring after that first lap and getting in his head. He's just kept soldiering on as Gabor Shontos now took second place away from Scott Holmes, as these two will start to work together to try and bring that gap down to Tony Hitala out in front. 3-lap tyre difference between the top two as Galindo picks up a 3-second time penalty. He's slotting in just behind Cameron Dowds at the moment. It's been a disappointing race from Dowds with that early contact with Loureiro, and also then involved in that 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That's what's put him so far down throughout this field. And for Raminguez, he's still not able to find a way through here onto top 8. And he's just going to have to sit behind a little bit longer as we head into Yen Sao. But he's got to be careful here, does Aaron Raminguez, because he's going to be swallowed up by Dowds if he's not too careful. So surely you expect the Alpine to get the move done into that first corner.
You'd think so. He's going to give it a go, and it's going to be a challenge into the first corner for Aaron Raminguez on Tope with the DRS, but Tope might be closer to Oliver Knott than the other Alpine is, and he's going to brake early. Is Tope just to try and get the turn in? Aaron Raminguez backs the McLaren to brake later, and in the end, he's not able to make the move, but he does get a better exit because he gave Tope a little bit of a tap and might be making the move into Desida de Lago. Tope goes through, Raminguez goes through, and it might be a double salvo for the back Alpine driver, who's now become the lead Alpine, but no, Aaron Raminguez stays in behind, and now it's Cameron Dowds' opportunity to try and make a move to the inside, and that should be a little bit easier than the other two made it look. Indeed, it was. Dowds up to 9th place. Oliver Knott trying to stay with that group, but he knows at the end of the day this probably isn't his fight.
No, it's certainly not. It seems that Knott might potentially just may fall out on the points after Dennis Langrock gets past him as well, and Galindo too. And we're going to see potentially Tony Hitala come under some pressure a little bit later on, as in the space of a lap. Shontos has brought that gap down now to 2 seconds between himself and his teammate, with Scott Holmes and Enzo Sabaton following in drift. Are we going to see any more moves throughout this train? It looks like we are. Loureiro being overtaken by Tope. Raminguez will want to try and follow him through into that first corner. Just not able to do so, but Loureiro goes deep, and that's invited Raminguez to the outside of turn 2, and he gets the move done very nicely indeed. And Dowds now to the inside through turn 3. He picks up that 8th place away from the Red Bull as we move into the Sino de Lago. And on lap 31 of 36, Dowds up into 8th place. At the moment, he's in a net P7 with the penalty for Tope. We have 2 big separate packs here, Joseph. We have the top 5 pushing on to try and get this race victory, and then everyone down to Carlos Galindo in their own little scraps for the lower ends of the points.
Yeah, lower ends of the points, which of course could become important at the end of this season, with all the drivers just trying to scrap every single possible point they can, especially with Cameron Dowds not doing so well this race. The opportunities opened up for a lot of them to really try and take every single point out and maybe get into the fight. A little bit of contact there. Oliver Knott later on the brakes and Carlos Galindo into the final corner, but no harm done for the Alpine. No harm done on the Aston Martin as well, because he's not been spun round, and they will remain in formation. Lap 32 of 36 as Dennis Langrock gets past Alex Lowe. Carlos Galindo does the same thing, and Oliver Knott to the outside line will get through on the Red Bull as well. Galindo and Dennis Langrock, in fact, remain side by side, and there's a little bit of contact between the two. Galindo goes almost off of the circuit, but manages to keep a tyre on and manages to stay to keep it in a straight line. Langrock has the better straight line speed. Cameron Dowds and Tope side by side just ahead of them as well, and it will be Cameron Dowds through, but Tope off the circuit. Galindo manages to defend against Langrock Langrock in the end, as there's a bit of contact. Tope off the circuit somehow manages to keep it on the straight and narrow, but has to succumb the position to Cameron Dowds.
This hasn't been the cleanest race here from Cameron Dowds. It's just not been too strong from the V-Carb driver so far this evening, and that little bit of contact might have just summed up the evening as a whole. Just very scrappy, not clean, and it's just not gone his way at all as this evening's progressed. Tony Hitala now nearly been caught up by Gabor Jontos. He's reeled in his teammates' 3-second deficit he had when Jontos took second place. It's now 1.3 seconds with 4 to go here at Interlagos, here in Sao Paulo, as Loureiro comes into pit lane, and he'll retire from the race as well, as there is Dennis Langrock versus Carlos Galindo, and Galindo gets the move done back again into turn 2, but it will be Langrock with the DRS. Maybe some DRS games there played from Dennis Langrock, where he didn't slow down intentionally, but he knew Galindo would chuck it back down the inside, but he won't get the move done. He doesn't have the battery to do so to get back by on the Aston Martin. Credit to Loureiro. I said he would retire thanks to that 10 seconds. He is not, so big credit where credit is due. And for Gabor Jontos, that gap now down to 1.1 seconds. He's flying through this middle sector, and potentially by the time we reach the exit of Yensao, DRS could be an option.
He has very much had to fly, and Gabor Jontos, I think, is going to be close enough by the detection point to pick up DRS, as the Haas driver does have it for the first time on his own teammate on lap 34. Tony Hitala has 3 laps to defend. That is the equation, and his tyres are 3 laps older than Gabor Jontos's. So Gabor will be the quicker driver, especially at this point in the stint. And I think for Tony Hitala, the smart idea is to slow down and to back Gabor into Scott Holmes's path. Now, the FVR driver would have been trying to push and remain out of DRS, but I think at this point now that Gabor Jontos is in it, it's going to be very difficult to get him back out of it unless he can fly through this sector, and it doesn't look as though he's going to have the overspeed to gain that 5/10 that now he needs over Gabor Jontos. So slow him down, push him back into Scott Holmes, Enzo Sabaton and Rayan Bakar's path. They know that Rayan and Enzo like to go for a move. They know that Scott Holmes goes for a defensive one as well. So if they can slow them up, then it can be an opportunity for Tony Hitala to take the victory in this race. Gabor Jontos, though, won't want that. He will want to have an opportunity to challenge with Tony Hitala. His first chance comes into 1.
It certainly does. DRS will be open for Gabor Jontos as he heads down into that first corner, but it won't just be enough just yet. It's all going to be about this patience game. 2 laps to go now as we've crossed the start-finish line. It's Jontos versus Hitala versus Holmes and Sabaton, with Bakar just lingering on in the background, with Langrock now getting back past on Carlos Galindo. Is he finally going to be able to get that move done on the Aston Martin and be able to hold on to it? Seems like he can, but it's all now about this drag race down the Sino de Largo with the DRS open. Is it going to be the Aston Martin back for all the Mercedes? He looks to the inside line, gets squeezed to the grass, bounces back into the Mercedes just as a little bit of a what was that for, mate? And Langrock with the switcheroo, and he's able to get in front now, but it's going to be to the outside for Carlos Galindo through turn 7, turns into the Mercedes, and as we're going to hit the brakes into 8, who's going to come out on top here? Would it be Langrock? Would it be Galindo? Langrock really squeezing the Aston Martin out of as much road as possible as we now head up the hill into turn 10. Surely someone has to give, and it is going to be Carlos Galindo who tries the up and under, but it won't work. But here we are then, Joseph, as we're about to start the final lap. We have Galindo versus Langrock into Yensao, and Jontos versus Hitala for the race lead.
Yeah, for the race lead indeed, and it'll be a late lunge from Jontos into 1, but Tony Hitala defends him. There's contact between the two, and Tony Hitala just moved across very late to defend there. Gabor Jontos wouldn't have quite been expecting that. He'll have the DRS down towards the Cedar de Largo for the final time, and will the R8G driver be able to make the move? Selling the dummy, inside line, Hitala defends the middle, so they're both going to be squeezing each other, and Gabor Jontos is able to find his way into the race lead. Scott Holmes tries to pour the misery on Tony Hitala, but cannot quite find the gap around the outside. And in the end, Gabor looks like he's going to go on to take this race victory.
He certainly does indeed. Gabor Jontos with the ultimate switcheroo down the retro poster into the Sino de Largo. An expertly done move, and that's why he's at R8G, for moves like that and performances like this. In Bahrain, he may have dominated a majority of the race, but when it mattered the most on the final lap, he wasn't the one leading. Switch that around at Brazil. He didn't lead for a majority of this one, but the final lap is the one that matters, and Gabor Zontos, the Hungarian, wins the second round of the season here in Interlagos. He's able to get onto the top step with a fantastic battle with teammate Hitala. It's a Haas 1-2 here in Brazil, and for Gabor Zontos and Tony Hitala, there will be a lot of respect there from the pair of them. It was clean, hard racing between the pair, and Zontos really saw Tony Hitala apart. He saw through the defence, and he was able to pull off an absolute masterful move to get that move done into the race lead. It's the Hungarian who takes his first race victory of the season, and with that will take the championship lead. And that is what we were all expecting coming into the season with Gabor Zontos into the fray, Joseph.
Yeah, that's what you would expect from Gabor Zontos, definitely. Because he is just such a quick driver, and he's been able today to demonstrate just that. He's been able to demonstrate exactly what he's capable of, and took a thoroughly deserved victory. To run you through the finishing order, it would be Gabor Zontos in that first spot in the lead of this race, and has now taken the victory. Second place, of course, went to his teammate, and well, all the awards have been spread out as well. In third place, Scott Holmes from sixth place on the grid. He's had a dramatic one, but he's had a very good one. Enzo Sabaton ends up fourth, and Ryan Bakker, unfortunate to be in fifth place, I think, in the end. He went too long on the first stint. Aaron Dominguez, Dennis Langrock, Carlos Galindo, Oliver Knott, and Tamas Kokeni rounds out the top 10. And then Casper Flash, Cameron Dowds, Alex Lofer, and Tope round out the classified finishers, with Lutt, Tomasetto, JST, Cavero, Beisner, and Isaac Leet are retirements. But for Cameron Dowds and for Alex Lofer, aka Alejandro Loureiro as well, it could have been so much more.
It certainly could have been indeed, if you go back to mine and Joseph's beautiful faces, which you all want to see, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, it was just an interesting race throughout. Of course, it's a story of what could have been for the Railroad, really, in that one. Of course, we mentioned that contact with Cameron Dowds on the opening lap, and he just wasn't able to recover from that. It was just one of those incidents where it just drops him too far down the order, and of course with the banned hard tyre, it throws strategy up into the air, and it's a sense of an unknown. You just go into a bit of an unknown, and for the Railroad, yeah, really unfortunate for him there. And of course, he would just be wanting to look back on this one, say, yeah, I got pole position, so let's now move on to next week. Of course, we still have quite a few rounds to go. It's not like that was the championship finale, so the Railroad can fight back. But yeah, some drama at the beginning, and for Dowds as well, not to get on to even into the points after that race. I think that just sums up his evening. It was just not a great showing from the Scot, who performed so brilliantly in Bahrain. It just was a complete 180 of what we saw this evening.
Yeah, it certainly was, and that's not necessarily what he would have wanted to see at all. We are going to have an opportunity, by the way, to speak to one of our podium sitters at the very least. I think we're going to have a chance to speak to another one later on. But second place in this race was Tony Hitala. And, well, Tony, I mean, it was so close yet so far from yourself. How would you sum that one up?
Well, the pace was good, mostly. Just strategy, I had no clue what to do, so I just followed Ryan in on the first stop, and then it was pretty much, the race was just dead after that. I couldn't really do much more. I had pretty good pace, but you know, Gabor had like 3 laps younger tires than me. And yeah, the strategy just didn't go to plan, but it was pretty good pace anyway.
Yeah, and of course it's a very different strategy, I think. Potentially a very difficult one as well to master, of course, with having the hard tyres banned. But was it one of those things, did you prepare for this race strategically, or was it just one of those where it was just, you'll see how it goes?
Well, I kind of had a 4-hour nap, and I woke up 15 minutes before the race. I didn't do any laps. And I forgot that the race was today, so not really.
It was a good performance from yourself, I think, and it was a very good race for Haas indeed. I mean, obviously early stages of the season, but is there a thought about Drivers' Championship yet, or are you just gonna see how it goes?
I mean, it's always possible, but just see how it goes for now. Yeah.
Well, that's all from me. Max, have you got anything for Tony before we let him go?
Yeah, a few questions from me, Tony. Of course, congratulations on that second place. So just want to talk about that final lap. Of course, it was a brilliant move from Gabor for that race lead. But did you think him getting by was inevitable on that final lap, or are you a bit disappointed to lose that one at the end?
I mean, 100%. I mean, Gabor 3 laps younger tires on the mediums. It was just impossible for me to keep him behind, no matter what I tried. I tried my best, but there was no way I could keep him behind.
Yeah, it was certainly just one of those unfortunate things where the tyre wear was so big. How was the tyre wear? Was you expecting it to be a bit less, knowing it being Brazil, or was it around about what you expected around this circuit?
It was what I expected. Yeah.
And of course, we head on to another mystery track next week, which of course we do not know yet. Tony, first of all, will you be racing round there?
Yeah, pretty sure I will. I don't see why not. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your second place, and yeah, go enjoy the rest of your evening, and congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
Well, that was Tony Hietala. Next, we have the man who finished third in this one. A brilliant performance from the Williams man of Scott Holmes. Of course, we're not going to get anything from Gabor Shontos, it seems. So this will be the last interview of the evening. So let's bring Scott into the comms box. There we go. Hello, Scott. Can you hear us?
Yep, hello.
Hello. Well, congratulations on that third place. Just talk us through that one. How did things go for yourself?
Yeah, not a bad result, especially after the first race. For me, Bahrain is a horrible track. So it was never going to be a good start. I did my best and then went on to the next one. So today, qualifying was okay, a bit disappointed with my lap, but I mean, everyone's going to have quite poor laps, I feel like, in this format where you're just a bit unexpected going into the event. You can never really get a proper bit of practice in, just a bit of warm-up on just the game in general. Going into the race, decent start, a bit of contact with a few people, but it was all okay. Then it's all about just saving the tyres, we're already just maintaining position. Everyone around me is really quick, so just hold your spot, save the tyre a little bit if you can, and then box when necessary to try and maintain, and then if you can move forward, go for it.
Yeah, that certainly did seem to be the strategy, and it worked out really nicely from you. Was your strategy not pre-planned, because of course you got the trap 5 minutes beforehand, but heading into the race, were the lap targets roughly around about when you boxed?
Yeah, definitely. We had some rough ideas that we wanted to go a bit earlier in the first one to make sure we keep the position, especially after the qualifying. So when you know where you are, that's more when I feel like the time to really know what the strategy is going to be is at that time. But yeah, so box a bit early on the first one and then try and save a bit of the second stint. Go a bit longer to almost equalise the tyre out to the rest of the field a bit more. So we did it a little bit. I mean, Gabor had a couple laps better tyres than me, and I think Ryan as well. But it wasn't too bad of a difference, so we just equalise the tyres and then just have a better end stint.
Yeah, of course. That end stint was very nicely driven by yourself, and of course you and Gabor worked really well to bring that gap down to Tony Hietala. Was the plan just to sit behind Gabor, and if you potentially got to move into the final couple of laps, go for it, or was it just to round off the podium and make sure you got that P3?
Yeah, well, look, I'm always trying to move forward if I can do. But when Gabor is on the faster tyres, and he's also a very, very quick driver, it's very difficult to keep him behind firstly and then get back past him if I do go behind. So once I was behind him, it was more about getting dragged along to the front two and then hoping or just waiting and trying to see if anything happens in front of me which I can capitalise on and then try and move up from there. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it was always a good position to be in.
Yeah, it certainly was indeed. And lastly from myself, before I hand you over to Joseph, of course, we head to another one of the mystery tracks next week. Will you be racing next week?
Yeah, I should be. Don't see why not.
Well, Joseph, over to you.
Well, I mean, it was just, of course, a good performance for yourself, but I wanted to talk more about the season as a whole. And I mean, you've been one of the drivers, if not the driver, with the biggest progression over the course of the last few seasons. And of course, Tier 2 is you're still learning. I think you're still getting up there, but of course, that pace is continuing on. And I mean, are you looking? What's the outlook for the season in general? Is it going to be a target of race wins? Is it going to be something along those lines, or is it just see how it goes?
Well, I quite like the format, to be honest. I don't really like practicing. I know everyone doesn't really like to practice too much. So doing a quick mystery track, it's not too bad for me. I really like it, and I feel like I can almost adapt quite quickly most often. So I'll be hoping that I'm always top 10 near the front, pushing top 5. And then on a few tracks where maybe I'm a bit stronger, I'd love to be fighting at the front for the win every single time I get one of those ones.
So it's almost a season that benefits you then, rather than the ones where you know the tracks beforehand.
I mean, in a way, yeah. I practice a lot when there is an event, but of course, for this one, it's a bit more of a fun season, a bit more, still competitive, but a bit of a mess around with the tyre strategy as well, where you can't use the hards. So just have a bit of fun, do your best, and really just see what I can accomplish.
Of course, well, I mean that's the whole point of this. Is we need to take a step back sometimes and realise that that's what we're going for. Well, thank you very much, Scott, and congratulations on your podium. And we'll see you next time out.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was Scott Holmes, and it seems that he's quite liking this format. I think me and you are as well, Joseph. I think it's a very fun format for us to have here, about having the mystery circuits and the hard tyres ban. It shakes things up a little for the drivers.
Certainly does. It makes it just that little bit more interesting, because of course they can have a million hours of practice beforehand, and they can have also they can just prepare so much for the race, and it can become almost a little bit monotonous if they know what's happening beforehand. But if they don't, then it can make it just that little bit more interesting. And I think that's what we've been picking up here.
Yeah, it certainly is. It does make things a lot more interesting. It make it much more of a guessing game with these drivers not being able to have any time beforehand as well, to make sure their setups are as accurate as they possibly can, especially with some circuits on the calendar. And talking about the calendar, let's run you through the rest of the track pool that we have for the rest of the season. Of course, you'll join us next month, actually on March the 2nd. That will be, of course, next Monday, where we still have Abu Dhabi, Austria, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Imola, China, Hungary, Mexico, Monaco, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Spain, and Texas yet to come. Of course, 10 rounds throughout this season. Some will not be featured, but certainly a majority of the fun ones will. Joseph, I know you're not with me, well, potentially not with me next week. Just what circuit, if you do ever come back, would you be looking forward to the most?
I see, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I've always thought that every single race that we've ever had around COTA has always been a really, really good one. So if there's any circuit that I could choose, I think it would be that one, just because, I mean, of course, I'm not racing in it, so I don't particularly care what the circuit is, but I think that one always produces a very, very good race. And it's just always a fun one to watch. I think we had a pre-season race at the start of F125 that was an absolute banger, and I think it's always good fun to go back to it. I think as well, Spain always produces a pretty decent race, especially when the drivers don't know it, because it can become a little bit monotonous if of course they've had the time to practice, but if not, then they're throwing themselves straight into it, then it can become rather interesting.
Yes, it certainly can indeed. But that is going to be all, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Texas is a brilliant circuit. Spain is as well. But you'll find out next Monday, 5 minutes before the race, what track we will be out of the remaining track pool. Joseph, before we head off, though, is there any last words from you?
I just thank you very much for having me, and well, keep an eye on next week because if last week's anything to go by, this season, which of course will continue next week, is going to be spicy.
It certainly is indeed. Well, thank you, Joseph, for stepping in as well this evening. And of course, hopefully, we'll have Corey back. But if not, we'll surely, if Joseph is available, we'll be happy to take him back into the commentary box. But that is going to be all, ladies and gentlemen. Jontos takes the championship lead after round 2, but it's still very early days in the title fight. But make sure you join us next week at 8 o'clock UK time, 9 p.m. Central European time for another mystery track. We'll reveal it, of course, on the stream. Hopefully, we get another interesting and amazing race like we saw this evening. Well, we shall see you in the next one. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to the drivers as well for partaking in this season. And we shall see you next week for another mystery circuit. Stay safe, stay well, and bye-bye.